Pardon me while I have a strange interlude.
There is nothing else. Life is an obscure hobo bumming a ride on the omnibus of art.
Along the misty corridors of time, and in those corridors I see figures, strange figures.
Welcome back, my friends, to the AP Strange Show. I am your host, AP Strange. This is my show, and today's show is brought to you by the Jeff the Talking Mongoose course on throwing bricks. Have you ever wanted to throw a brick at somebody and you feel inhibited or just don't know how? Well, if you take the course from Jeff the Talking Mongoose, you can be taught not only how to throw bricks, but small stones and neat tricks like spitting at people from inside of a wall. If you have adversaries that you think need to have something thrown at them, this is the course for you, and you'll learn how to do it in an extra special, extra clever kind of way. So today on the show, we're going to be talking about Jeff. We're going to be possibly decoding the cipher of the Talking Mongoose, although it has been noted that perhaps Jeff would not want to be decoded. And with me here to do that is Gayle Fidler, and she is hailing from the northeast of England, and she is a writer and researcher with the Spooky Isles. She contributes there often and has a background in folklore and the occult, and also a writer of fiction for various titles with Leg Iron Press. On top of that, she does special effects makeup stuff, and she's learning blacksmithing, and she's a collector of bad taxidermy, from what I understand. So this will be a very fun conversation. Welcome to the show, Gayle.
Hello, thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Yeah, I became aware of your work because you were talking about actually visiting the Isle of Man and investigating Jeff, and alongside people from the Lancashire Anomalous Phenomena Investigation Society and the Center for Fortean Zoology. I thought this was great just because I've loved Jeff for a long time, and it's one of those cases where it seemed like it lasted a few years at Dorlish Cashen on the Irving farm, and then petered out, and then became kind of a historical oddity. But I'm like, Jeff seems to me to be a magical being, so why wouldn't you go investigate now? He should still be there, right? Or some kind of form of him. So I'm curious about where your interest with Jeff began, first of all, and secondly, if you agree with me on that statement that he should still be around.
I hope he is still around. So I first became interested in Jeff 2019. I must have known about Jeff prior to this because of various books and things, but he didn't really kind of grip my interest, or I didn't really know a lot about him until I was at a conference in 2019, the Weird Weekend North conference in England. And there was a guy there called Christopher Joseph who has written a book called Jeff, the Strange Tale of an Extra Special Talking Mongoose. And he did a presentation at the conference about Jeff, and it was absolutely fantastic. It's basically, he has just gone into so much detail and so much research. So if you're interested in the case, definitely buy his book. So we listened to him speak, and afterwards a group of us went to the pub and we're just kind of mulling it over and said, oh, this was a brilliant talk. We loved it. And we just, after a pint of beer, we said, let's go to the Isle of Man and let's go and investigate it. So we'd planned to go the following year, which unfortunately was 2020. So the pandemic hit and that never happened. So in 2022, a group of 7 of us went to the Isle of Man to go and investigate the Jeff case. And we've been going back every year ever since. And we're continuing to do so. We're going back this year. And in terms of, is Jeff still around? I'd love to think so. We haven't found him yet, but we continue to look for him. So.
Yeah, that's great because it is interesting to think of it like within the realm of Fortean zoology, like being familiar with some of the work of Richard Freeman and Jonathan Downes of CFZ. It you know zoology, the Fortean zoology is a little bit different than cryptozoology in the respect that a lot of cryptozoologists are looking for flesh and blood animals, and they're open to a wider range of possibilities at CFZ. So uh, um, it is funny that to me though, because sometimes people do seem to think of Jeff as a cryptid. I've seen cryptozoologists like talk about him that way. Whereas traditionally, it's been an object of fascination for parapsychologists like Nandor Fodor or Harry Price, where it's framed more as a poltergeist or spiritual phenomena. So, which again, those tend to be short-lived. But I think there's a case to be made that he's more of a magical entity. So,
Absolutely. And
yeah.
James Irving, well, originally James Irving thought that he was a flesh and blood creature and was very much of the opinion that he was a flesh and blood weasel or
Mhm.
rat in the house. And I think Nandor Fodor went down that route as well at one point to say that he was, or possibly was, a flesh and blood talking animal. He did change his mind later on, but that is, one of the theories that is put forward. But yeah, you mentioned Rich Freeman. Rich comes on all our expeditions with us, and he's a great guy to have around because his knowledge of cryptozoology is absolutely out of this world. So he's brilliant to have on the team.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I said, he doesn't seem to be afraid of covering some of the wackier, like more mystical and woo explanations for things, you know?
Absolutely. Like Rich, yeah, he'll consider all possibilities. And it's really funny because years ago I'd read Three Men Seeking Monsters by Nick Redfern. This was long before I ever met Richard Freeman. And I remember reading that book and thinking, oh gosh, I really want to go on a magical expedition and have these crazy adventures and search for strange things. And now I'm doing it. So with one of the guys in the book. So yeah, it's really exciting. It's a bit of
Yeah,
fun. Well,
it's funny how that works out. Yeah, it's great when you're actually meeting the people that inspired you and then
absolutely.
investigating alongside them. That's wonderful. Yeah. Well, here's something that struck me prior to this chat. I went and revisited. It's actually a reprinting of the Harry Price and Lambert book on Jeff, the original one, which is I guess the haunting at Cashen's
Cashen's
Gap.
Gap. I have a
Yeah,
copy there.
yeah.
Do you have an actual copy? Because it's if you look on eBay, it's the reprint is really expensive now. You can't get it for like less than a few £100s. And the
One,
original copy is ridiculously expensive.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
they're rare, so you
Mm.
can't get it. And no, I don't. That would be highly prized. It would have a very special place on my shelf if I had an original copy.
Yeah, we keep
So
looking, but we need a lottery win.
yeah, so what I have is the Inner Light um, reprint of it, which that was Timothy Green Beckley's kind of imprint here, and he reprinted a lot of old books. So Tim Schwartz writes in it and kind of summarizes stuff. It has a couple of contributors, but the entirety of The Haunting at Cashen's Gap is included in it. So um, that's good. At least I can read it,
Yeah.
even if I don't have an old copy. But one thing that struck me, it's right at the beginning, and I don't think I'd ever heard anybody mention this, but Price makes a point, or Lambert. I'm actually not sure who's writing at various points in the book because they're co-authors, but somebody makes the point of mentioning that Jim Irving in his professional life had come to be acquainted with a lot of Jewish people, and it makes note of the fact that there are Jewish magical signs painted on the chicken coops there. And
Yeah.
it's written in italics in the version I have as though it's a caption to a photo, but there's no photo. And I'm
There is
like,
no photo.
it's very strange, but I'm just like, okay, well, Hebrew magical signs, like I wish we had at least a diagram or a sketch or a photo because I'm really interested in knowing what those signs were. Because if you think about the magical implications of what Jeff is, and there's magical signs there, uh, seems like it would be helpful to know. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, it's a real shame because there is no photo. I'm not aware of any photos existing. And we've looked at some of the photos that you can access online, Nandor Fodor's photos in the Island Garrett collection, and there is nothing online.
Mm,
Um, so nobody at the minute knows what that symbol was. Unfortunately, there's no buildings left when you go to where the property was, so everything's gone. Um, and I'm really interested in James Irving's background because it seems very sketchy and there's very few details about what he was actually doing before he came to the Isle of Man. We know that he was a piano salesman. We know that he'd travelled widely while he was doing that profession. He'd definitely been over to Canada and back, and he spoke several languages, not fluently, but he definitely had quite a good grasp of a number of languages. But apart from that, it's very there's just very little information about him. Unfortunately, we know that during the First World War, he was working in Liverpool. I can't remember but he was like checking post. There's a name for the job, but he was like to make sure like censorship and doing that sort of thing.
right. Yeah. Yep.
Um, but yeah, he's a bit of an enigma and definitely an area of interest. And that's as much as we've been able to kind of find out about him at the minute. But
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a
And I think he's a really important part of the story. And I think a lot of attention gets drawn to young Voiri, his daughter, and people tend to put the focus on her, which is, sure, it's important that she's there. But Jim is the driving force behind all of it, and consistently the one that Jeff wants to talk to, or yeah,
absolutely.
yeah,
And all the communication comes via Jim. So the letters, the diaries, it's always Jim doing that communication to Price or Fodor. He's definitely the spokesperson of the family. And he's the one that seems to take the most interest in Jeff and his doings and almost became like a father figure to Jeff when you read some of the diary entries and the letters. I think he calls him my lad. Very
right,
much has this kind of father and son relationship with him.
huh,
But yeah,
yeah,
he's an interesting guy that we don't know a lot about.
yeah. I mean, we know that he and his wife had Voiri later in life,
Yeah.
um, so they were older, and that was one point of contention I had with the movie with Simon Pegg, which I guess we'll get into at some point. But is that and his wife are portrayed as being, fairly young, but they were older when
Yeah,
Voiri came
Jim
along. Yeah,
was I think Jim was late 50s in 1931. I think he was 58 when the Jeff um when Jeff's first started, so 1931, and Margaret was 54, I think.
yeah,
So yeah, they were
right,
much older in life.
right, yeah, and they already had children that were pretty much grown by
Yeah,
that
they
point.
had two
Yeah,
grown-up
yeah,
children. Yeah.
right, yeah. Um, so yeah, it would definitely be more interesting to know more about Jim. And I think I've heard or read a little bit that his wife was like vaguely interested in or involved in spiritualism, but I don't know too much about that either. It seems like there's a lot of details missing.
Yeah, she's alleged to have had an interest. Jeff called her Maggie the Witch Woman.
Right.
And she's referred to as having these very dark eyes and quite piercing stare that would look through people. So yeah, there is definitely is references to her having this kind of what you could interpret as a witch kind of persona. Um, in terms of her interests, there's not a lot again written about it, other than what Jeff has said and what Jim's written in his diaries that Jeff has said about Margaret. But yeah, again, we
Yeah.
don't know a lot about her as a person.
Yeah. And I mean, the family dynamic too, it's kind of funny because you had mentioned that Jim was like a father figure to Jeff, and there are instances where Margaret has gotten upset with Jeff and decided not to give him food, and then Jeff is
Yeah.
coming crying to Jim about it and being like, "Hey Jim, how about some grubbo? I'm hungry."
He just makes me laugh. When you read some of the things that Jeff says, he's actually hilarious. And I think this is one of his charms that he's just so funny. I mean, he can be really nasty and he's quite, he swears sometimes and he can be quite awful, but he's hilarious. He's
Yeah,
very charming.
yeah. In that way, I mean, to me, he strikes me as um, kind of one of these like comical figures that subverts authority, because especially if there's somebody there that's like a stuffed shirt, it seems like he's always the really informal kind of vulgar presence that's gonna say
Yeah,
the things that you wouldn't say in polite society.
absolutely.
um and I mean, to be clear, we're talking about a talking mongoose here, so this is the wildest and some of the most fun paranormal stuff to even consider. But having a background in occultism, uh do you think that, would you agree that that's kind of part of magic and the occult, is that sometimes it's just funny and kind of
Yeah,
absurd?
absolutely. And I
Yeah,
think if you can't have fun with it, then what is the point? Yeah, some of it's so crazy that absolutely, yeah.
right.
They,
Yeah. um all right, well, so you visited Dorlish Cache, and I guess some of the as you had said, the farm is no longer there. I think in your written description you said there were just a few of the bushes left, and that was about
yeah.
it. Yeah.
When you go up there, so the farmhouse itself has gone. That was destroyed in 1971. Nobody seems to know why. Again, a bit of a mystery. Potentially, I've read that some of the buildings that the farm was used to build a cattle shed, which is a bit further up. Um, the well is left, and there's some gooseberry bushes, which were Margaret's gooseberry bushes, which we have taken seeds of, and we now have Jeff gooseberry bushes over here in England. They have grown.
Oh, good.
So we have Jeff gooseberries. Well, we have Jeff gooseberry bushes. They haven't given us any gooseberries yet, but hopefully this year. But apart from that, there is absolutely nothing left of it. So if you went there and you didn't know what you were looking for, you wouldn't know at all that there'd been a farm there at any point,
Right.
unfortunately.
Yeah, because this was a remote and pretty desolate location.
It is very remote. So it's on the top of a hill on the Isle of Man. It's on Dalby Mountain, and it's quite a trek to get to. So it's about a mile up a hill. There's no proper roads to it, so it is a walk. You can't get to it by car or motor vehicle. Um, and it's just in this beautiful place that overlooks the local towns. There would have been no farmhouses within about a mile vicinity of it. So yeah, it was relatively remote. But you could trek there and back. There's a village, as I say, about a mile away that they did walk to, and then the nearest town, I think, is about 7 miles away. And Margaret went there regularly, walking backwards and forwards to the town where her elderly parents were living at the time.
Oh, okay.
Uh, but it's a beautiful location.
Yeah.
It's on top of a hill. Yeah, absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, I think Price described it as like the loneliest farmhouse in the British Isles or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, and to be fair, we've only been up there in good weather. I can't imagine
Yeah,
what it's like in the winter. It's probably pretty grim. But in
yeah,
summer, spring and summer, it's absolutely gorgeous.
yeah. Now, Voiry would have been going to school in the town, right? Or the village that was nearby. So,
Yes. So
yeah.
there is a village nearby that she did go to school to, and when she was at junior school, that was in the local church, which is still there, so you can still go into the church hall. And they do have a little bit of a Jeff display in there. They've got a tiny little kind of exhibition downstairs with details of the surrounding area. So there is a little bit of local information about Jeff in there. But yeah, she would walk backwards and forwards down to school. And later on, she got the bus to town when she went to the bigger school.
Right. Yeah. Because it seems like a lot of Jeff's interests and her interests were kind of aligned. like they were both very interested in mechanical things,
Yeah.
and planes and things like that. And yeah,
Steamrollers, they had the fascination with steamrollers, strangely, and planes and cars. Yeah, they definitely had some very similar interests.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. Um, and it seems to me that like their friendship, as it were, seemed pretty short-lived. Like in the book, it sounds like from the accounts that I've read that she helped to teach him how to talk, and they were like besties for a minute, but then she basically was kind of over it and didn't want to have anything to do with them, and especially later on. I think it was a source of her being kind of ostracized and alienated by other kids, you know?
she was, yeah, she was ostracized at school. She was bullied quite badly over it. They used to call her the Dalby Spook, so Jeff is referred to as the Dalby Spook in the Isle of Man,
Yeah,
and they would call her that and taunt her. And later on in life, when she was interviewed for Fate magazine, she basically said that it ruined her life. And she never married because of Jeff, because she was so embarrassed about people finding out about the case and what people might think of her. So yeah, they were only friends for a very short period of time. But when they were, they would go out catching rabbits together and wandering the countryside, and they had a really good relationship for a period of time. And then unfortunately, it kind of fizzled out for whatever reason, and she kind of grew out of him, I guess, which is sad.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah. And one would think that that's almost counter to the narrative that you usually get with poltergeist activity being related to those kind of formative years in pre-adolescence, where it's kind of a outward expression, according to some parapsychologists with psychoanalytic backgrounds, Fodor included, is like an outward expression of the inner turmoil of that kind of change. But it sounds like during that time it was actually just kind of pleasant for her, you know. So
Absolutely. And he did help around the farm. He helped the family. So he would catch rabbits, because at that point in time, they didn't have much money. So he would go out and he would catch rabbits and he would leave them and they would go and sell the rabbits and make, some more money for their income. So yeah, he was really helpful. He would keep chase rats out of the barns and kind of look after the chickens, sort of keep foxes away. Oh, sorry, there isn't any foxes in the Isle of Man, but he would kind of keep predators away from them. Um, he would I think they'd lost a sheep on one occasion, and he told Jim exactly where the sheep was, this sheep that had been injured. So yeah, he was very helpful.
yeah, yeah. So I mean, you could do worse than having a talking mongoose in your house, but
Absolutely.
he was I guess troublesome too because he would sometimes keep everybody up all night just making a racket in there. So unpredictable, but
Yeah. He was naughty as well. He was quite noisy.
yeah.
He liked to
Uh,
sing and dance.
yeah. Well, that's cool too. All right, so here's something that I thought of recently is the kind of the spelling of the name Jeff is unusual. Because if you were to spell Jeff with a G, typically you would expect it to be like Geoff, right? And with the double F. Um, uh, and it would still be pronounced Jeff, but it's those three letters. And given the musical thing with him and the fact that Jim was a piano salesman, I wonder if there's a musical code to the name.
Oh, there's an interesting theory.
Because those were,
I'm not musically talented whatsoever, but yeah, it's definitely worth looking into.
yeah, I mean, because um, if it were spelled with a J, there is no note that's a J, but the musical scale goes from A to G. So yeah, you would have to use just the G, the E, and the
Ah, Jeff exclusive. You heard it here first.
F. Well, this is all part of decoding it, and
Yeah.
maybe Jeff will interfere with the recording or the internet right now just to stop that.
Yeah,
If he doesn't, we'll know that we're not on, we're way off course, you know.
absolutely. I need to go and find someone that can play piano and play that.
Well, I mean, I don't think that those three notes in succession. I didn't try it, but I don't. I can kind of picture in my mind what that sounds like, and it doesn't sound great. It's an odd. It would be an odd melody. I'm sure there's ways you could play around with it that it wouldn't be, but yeah. And it's not a chord because E and F together would sound terrible. It would be very dissonant. So, um, I don't know, just a thought. Because I mean, musicality does. I mean, the music and music theory does play into magic in a lot of ways, right? So, I think there's something that can be done with it. I'm not exactly sure what it is. I just wanted to run it by you.
Yeah, no, we'll record it, and we'll next time we go there in May, we'll go and play it at Dawlish Cashen site and see what happens.
Well,
See if
right.
we
I mean, it's not too crazy because, like in the series Hellier, they had that part where they were
yeah,
doing the Estes method and they had the three tones that they were singing. So you could just do the same thing with those three tones, you know? Yeah.
we'll give it a go.
Right.
Definitely.
So you go back there every year.
Yes. So we've been going back there every year since 2022. We try and spend about 2 weeks out there, and we just absolutely love it. And we're booked to go this year, so we'll be going at the end of April, into May for a couple of weeks.
Okay, nice.
It's lovely.
Yeah, so and it seems like, as tends to be the case when you're looking into high strangeness, that you had plenty of synchronicities along the journey when you were looking into it the first time. um, I don't know if you want to get into that at all. I think you had a post about it called Simon Pegg's Stole
Simon
My.
Pegg stole our mongoose, yeah.
Right.
So I've got a hoodie with it on actually. We have a Jeff hoodie. Don't know if you can
Yeah.
see that, but we have a Simon Pegg stole our mongoose. Um, I'm hoping he doesn't sue us at some point. Apparently he knows about it. He has been sent a picture. So,
Okay.
but I don't think he's responded. Um, but yeah, so the first time we'll talk about the synchronicities about the film. So the first time we went to the Isle of Man in 2022, and we'd said to people, family members and sort of work colleagues, etc., oh, we're going to the Isle of Man to look for a talking mongoose from the 1930s, and everybody looked at us like we were completely mad. But it was a lot of fun, so we went out there. And I was really expecting when I got to the Isle of Man that Jeff would be a celebrity over there, and I would find him on mugs and key rings and tea towels, and I'd be able to buy all this Jeff stuff, this Jeff merch, and bring it home. And when I got there, I was really disappointed because there is just nothing. So there's no Jeff merchandise. And when you speak to people on the Isle of Man, they were mostly of the opinion that it was a hoax, and they weren't really that interested, which is really strange because the Isle of Man is a very superstitious place. There is a lot of folklore ingrained on the island. People are very superstitious and bring folklore into their daily life. But with regards to Jeff, they were just not interested at all.
Huh.
So I'd contacted the local radio station to say that we were over here, if anybody want to do an interview, and the episode didn't air. And I thought, oh, it's going to air when we've gone home, which is a real shame because it's great to interview people face to face.
Right.
And we decided to stay for an extra couple of days just because we loved the island so much. So we'd gone to the pub one day, and I was just kind of looking through social media. And I saw this post to say that Simon Pegg was making a film about Jeff the Talking Mongoose. And I was like, oh my God, like this is so weird because it's Simon Pegg, he's quite a well-known actor. And this is like, it's going to be quite a big movie. I was really excited about it. So I was like, that's a bit weird when that's happening while we're over here looking for Jeff. And that no, up until this point, none of our sort of normal family and friends had heard about him. And then, funnily enough, the journalist from the radio station got in touch with me immediately. The news had broken and said, oh, we're going to air that kind of interview tomorrow, which was great. Nobody came forward, though, to talk to us, unfortunately. But, it was still a good interview. And so the film, yeah, so that was the first year. The second year, the day that we left the island after our second visit, the trailer for the film, which is Nandor Fodor on the Talking Mongoose, for anybody that has watched it. It's quite a good film, worth watching. So the trailer was released that day, and then the fourth year, so last year, 2025, Richard and Jackie, who are part of our team, had been asked to go on a podcast before we were going out to the Isle of Man about something completely different, nothing to do with Jeff at all. So they went and they did an interview for this podcast. And afterwards, they got on with the guys that were doing the podcast and they decided to go for lunch together. And it turns out that one of the guys that was interviewing them from the podcast was Tim Downey, who plays Jim Irving in the film Nandor Fodor and the Talking Mongoose.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, so they were like, this is a bit strange. And they somehow got talking about Jeff and the film, and Tim Downey and his colleague Justin Chubb came to the Isle of Man with us last year. So we ended up with Jim Irving essentially joining us on the trip. So it was very strange. A lot of
And did you have
strange coincidences.
yeah, did you have a seance with Tim Downey as well?
We did. We did. So when we were over there, we stay at this house called Airy Cushlin, which is just a couple of miles from the Dawlish Cashen site. It's a very, very remote farmhouse. You can rent it as a holiday rental, and it's absolutely beautiful, but it is literally in the middle of nowhere. You have to go down a farm track through a number of locked gates to get to it, and it's got its own kind of superstition and folklore attached to the house and the land around that anyway. Jeff didn't like Airy Cushlin at all. He told Jim he was scared of it. He called it the land of the mist. He said it was where he was gonna go when he died. And it was said that local people wouldn't set foot there after night. But we stay there every year and we absolutely love it. And it's a really nice house. It's just really cozy and beautifully decorated. But anyway, Tim and Justin came back to Airy Cushlin with us, and we did a Jeff seance with Tim as Jim. And yeah, we kind of just did it initially as a bit of fun, really. The stuff that came through was just, you could say it was gibberish, and it probably was gibberish. But we did get the words Jeff and Tim and Jim. So yeah, it was an interesting night.
Yeah,
But
well, it
Jeff
sounds that
himself
way.
didn't turn up, or maybe he did, but we didn't actually see him.
Well, he was afraid of the place, but if he did die, then he would probably be there, right? So that's more evidence
Yeah,
for him being alive,
yeah.
whatever that means.
We've left him biscuits out every time we've been there, but he's not come for his biscuits yet. So, but we'll try again
Yeah.
this year. You never know. You never know.
Well, that was kind of the funny thing about Dorlish Cashen, and like he would just leave for a month at a time, and sometimes
Yeah.
like conveniently when investigators were showing up, it's like, oh, Jeff's out in town somewhere. I'm not sure where he is. I'm sure he'll be back.
Yeah, he didn't like it. He didn't like people investigating him. He especially didn't like Harry Price. He would call people Harry Price is the man that puts the kibosh on the spirits, and he has his doubting cap on. So yeah, he didn't like being investigated. So it's probably why he hides when we go and look for him.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Well, it was like the nature of the whole phenomena, though, was trying to look directly at it and figure it out and go hunting for it. It'll hide from you, you know?
Absolutely, absolutely. But I think kind of the thing about Jeff is that even though he kind of, he disappeared, or he vanished, as he liked to say, he's kind of still around because he's led us on this amazing adventure. And I've met some fantastic people because of Jeff. Well, I wouldn't be here talking to you.
Right.
And yeah, so he's kind of, he lives on, really. It's where he's taking us next. So
Yeah,
yeah,
he lives on in his own way, and he's always causing trouble.
absolutely.
I have something pulled up here just because I found this just kind of looking at old newspaper clippings, and I did a keyword search for Jeff to see what comes up. And this is like long after the events. I think, let's see, I think it's in the 40s. Um, oh no, it's 1936, so it's not that far off. But there was a whole lawsuit with and trouble with the BBC because R.S. Lambert was suing somebody, who called him mad for having investigated the or written the book.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there was another lawsuit as well. I can't remember
Yeah,
who. I think there was another slander case, but Jeff actually ended up getting mentioned in a government level because of this lawsuit. So
right.
he's been there in our culture on some level and just causing trouble and mischief, and continues to do so. I think that's why people love him so much. And I've never come across another entity that brings so much kind of people have this passion for him and they just love him. They're just, yeah, he's definitely unique and one of a kind.
Yeah, he seems to typify, like I said, so much about the phenomena that is fascinating, funny, engaging, absurd, all these aspects that a lot of us can get very excited about,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
which is
Yeah.
naturally going to be troublesome, especially to the doubters and
Yeah.
So, what do you think Jeff does want? Because I mean, you had said before we started recording, perhaps he doesn't want to be decoded. Uh, what do you suppose he did want or does want? Because his motivations don't seem to go far beyond a little bit of grub here and then, or some music to be played.
I think, in all honesty, I think he probably just wanted to be part of the family. When you read what Jim said about him, he just wanted to sing and dance and eat his food and talk to the family. Yeah, just have that kind of relationship with them, probably. Um, he's quite simple in what he wanted, really. Uh, he didn't seem to want a lot, and he was actually he was offered, money to kind of expose himself and be seen. I think there was an American circus that had offered Jim a ridiculous amount of money if Jeff would join the circus and go to America, and James and Jeff were having none of it. Yeah, he just wanted to be part of the family.
Yeah, I don't know, and that is funny because it's like there have been plenty of cases where um, phenomena expected to show up on demand for the investigator, and that's just not how any of this works. And out of necessity, sometimes people feel like they need to hoax it, um, and then it just gets considered a hoax overall.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's potentially there is stuff that they did hoax when you look at some of the photographs. I mean, they probably are like a fur stole or something.
Mm,
But then it's kind of like you say, is it out of necessity? And that hoax, however much of it was hoaxed, it doesn't really matter now because so much of it is, that hoax has led to so many other things.
yeah. Well, that is an interesting point too, just because in terms of hoaxing, as far as the voice goes, um, it's commonly thought that Voiry was a ventriloquist. And that was one sticking point in the movie is with me. I'm like, oh, they're going that way with it, where she fully admits to being able to throw her voice. And um, I mean, Price in his book goes into a long description of what ventriloquism actually is and how it's not physically possible to throw one's voice. What you're actually doing is distracting attention away from where the sound originates and making people believe that the dummy that you're controlling is the one from whom it's coming. So, that was one sticking point I had with the movie. The movie was entertaining and fun to watch. If listeners, if you haven't seen it, it's still fun. But it kind of bugged me because I'm just like, oh, we're going through in the whole ventriloquist thing, huh? So,
Yeah.
yeah,
And that's an interesting point. And there was a number of witnesses who heard Jeff in the room with them when Vori was outside feeding the chickens and could be seen through the window feeding the chickens. So yeah, that I don't buy that whole ventral can't say it. Throw in the voice thing. Edit that bit out.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So, but yeah, the movie did go down that a little bit. But like I say to people, because there's quite a few people that have said, oh, it was, the movie wasn't great and they kind of, detracted from the storyline. But like I said, it's not a documentary. It's kind of just for me, it's just a nice feel good kind of movie. I think Jeff potentially was too complex a storyline to use, and they should maybe
Yeah.
looked at something else. But in essence, it was a nice kind of nice film. Makes you feel happy.
Yeah, well, and I mean, Simon Pegg's entertaining. It's kind of interesting to see him do an accent.
There's some dubious accents. Some of the accents are a bit, but
Well,
yeah,
Christopher Lloyd plays Harry Price and doesn't even attempt a British accent, which I think is very funny.
yeah,
He's just Christopher Lloyd. But
yeah. There's some interesting bits that, and some people have got quite cross about it. But
yeah,
yeah,
well,
I
in order to
enjoyed it.
capture adequately what the Jeff case would have been like, or why we all love it so much, I think they would have either had to amp up the comedy substantially and have it be a lot more madcap, or they would have had to get really weird with it to the point where it would be surreal and would lose a lot of audiences. So they kind of went down the middle and made up their own story, kind of involving some of the characters that we know, and
Yeah,
changing
I
them a
think
little to just for the story. They added a dog for some reason. They added a
yeah.
caretaker that I don't think exists in real life. The guy that was like worked for Jim on the farm. Uh,
Yeah,
yeah,
I think it would be interesting to have watched it without the background knowledge of the case, just to see how easy it was to follow. Because I imagine
yeah,
it probably wasn't very easy to follow, to be fair, if you didn't know
right,
anything about Jeff. But yeah,
yeah. Uh, I thought it was odd that they added an extra dog, um, but I did like the joke about how both dogs had the same name. Because that was the kind of quirky humor that I think you would need to do a lot of if you were really going to capture it. But yeah, it was entertaining enough. The acting in it, the actors that are in it are good. It's unfortunate that Neil Gaiman does the voice of Jeff
yeah,
in light of
unfortunately. Mm.
recent revelations. Um, but when it comes to it is interesting that he was cast that way just because of his book of American Gods and our discussion about belief and Jeff not liking people that didn't believe in him or unbelievers, right? Because the whole idea with American Gods was these gods kind of wither and lose power when people stop worshiping them.
Yeah, 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 it is a shame, but interesting choice. But hey ho. Um,
Yeah.
but,
Well, what's your thought on that as far as belief goes? Do you think it helps to show up with a full belief in Jeff and let him know if we're going to conjure Jeff, if that were possible, Um,
yeah, I think so because Jeff. There was witnesses. Well, in some of Jim's letters, he said that people who didn't believe in Jeff would refuse to show up for them.
right.
So, but Jeff didn't need to prove that he was real to anybody because Jeff knew. Well, Jeff believed that he was real. So I do think if you went there with your doubting cap on, as Jeff would have said, he won't turn up. But then we've been believing in Jeff for a number of years now, and he hasn't yet shown himself. So, but there's still time. There's still time.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we'll get there. Um, but well, so with your background in folklore, have you looked into a lot of the Manx folklore and from the Isle there?
Yeah, so there is so much folklore on the Isle of Man, and especially around that area where Dawlish Cashen was. Um, it's it's completely rich with it, and the Manx people they have this real belief in we would say the fae, but that you're not allowed to say that the fairy word. They don't like it. They find it very disrespectful. So it's the good people or the little
Yeah.
folk. And there is a lot of that belief around that whole area. And there's lots of stories of people seeing things at night when they've been out. There is a carriage, a phantom carriage that's been seen on the road near Dawlish Cashen. They have a spectral black dog at Peel Castle, the Mothy Doom.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's just absolutely rich with it. And actually, I'm just going to read you this quote that I found. Let me just get it up because I just think it's
Sure.
beautiful. So this is from William Cashen's Manx Folklore from 1912, and it's about Dalby Mountain, and Dalby Mountain is where Dawlish Cashen is. And it says, on Dalby Mountain, the old Manx people used to put their ears to the earth for the sounds of infinity. To hear the sounds which were murmurs, they thought these sounds came from beings in space, for in their belief, all of space is filled with invisible beings. And I just think that's absolutely beautiful.
Oh, I
And
love
it
that.
really kind of, yeah, it really typifies kind of the belief that the people have got. Um, and it's so ingrained. When you speak to the Manx people, it is just part of their life. They have the ferry bridge, which I don't know if you've seen pictures online of the ferry bridge on the Isle of Man.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's a bridge on the road, and it's actually got a plaque on it saying it's the ferry bridge. But every year when they have the TT, which is the bike race, the motorbike race that they have out there, the TT riders will stop and say good morning to the good people or good evening to the good people for luck before and after the race. When buses go over the bridge, they have an announcement to say good morning to the good people.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's really just, as I say, part of their everyday life, and it's I just think it's wonderful. It's a really magic liminal
Yeah,
place,
yeah. I
which
mean, and it seems like a very rarefied folklore on the Isle of Man. It's a little different. It's a little different flavor than the rest of the Isles. Um, I would think, I think there's a lot of tales of like giants and things like that, and
yeah,
from what
they've
I
got
understand.
giants, they've got mermaids, they've got yeah, they have a bit of everything. One dragon, apparently. Apparently there's only one dragon. But they've taken so there's Celtic, they've got Viking, so they've got Norse folklore, and it's kind of this amalgamation of different kind of people that have lived on the island over the centuries, all intertwined.
Huh.
And
Yeah,
yeah, it's really interesting.
yeah. Because well, you mentioned the Viking folklore. This occurred to me while reading about him. I started going on this little squirrely thread because there's a famous sketch of Jeff that to me just looks like a squirrel. I think you probably know the one that I'm talking about. But the ears are kind of really perked up, and they look like they're longer and a little hairier, and it's got the really bushy tail, and it just looks to me like a red
Does he
squirrel.
look like that? Like, can you
Yeah,
see that? He looks like that,
yep, yep,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. Um, and that kind of reminds me of Norse mythology. You have the Ratatoskr, the squirrel that runs up and down the world tree, and just kind of like causes trouble between the dragon and the eagle.
Yeah, that has somebody else has commented on that actually in the past. So yeah, that there is that connection there. There are no squirrels on the Isle of Man.
Ah,
And
right.
I know one of the things that was put forward when you look at the famous photographs of Jeff, one of the things that was said about him, oh, it's a squirrel. And people have said he looked like a squirrel, his tail kind of over his head, but there are no squirrels. That's not to say that a squirrel hadn't escaped from somewhere and
Oh
well,
yeah, could have been
kept
brought
as a
there
pet. Absolutely, yeah. But there's no
because
native squirrels.
yeah, well, there weren't native mongooses either, but somebody brought them there.
Yeah, that's very true. Oh yeah, so Airy Cushlin, where we stay, is the house where the mongooses were released. So in 1912, because there's no natural rabbit predators on the Isle of Man, in 1912 there was a farmer at Airy Cushlin who brought a load of mongooses there and released them to keep the rabbit population down, and that is the farm where we stay. Um, so yeah, whether those mongooses or ancestors of those mongooses are still there or not, who knows? But Jenny Randalls, the author, is alleged to have seen one when she was out there. And there was another sighting as well that was reported back to Christopher Joseph of a mongoose. So who
Oh, there
knows? I've
was
never seen one.
yeah, and there was a story like I think in the 50s somebody had shot a creature that they thought might have been Jeff.
There was a polecat. So there's a
Yeah.
picture of the polecat that was shot. And there is polecats there. And we've seen, unfortunately, one roadkill that looked like it was a polecat as well. So
All right. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Um, just interesting to think about. And also, so that was the place, I guess the guy that brought the mongooses there originally was named Irvine, right?
He was, but no relation to Jim.
Right. It's
It's just a
only the
weird coincidence.
yeah. Well, how often, how many times can things just be coincidences before they actually
Yeah,
mean something?
absolutely. Yeah.
um, it is funny though, because it's like Irvine and then Irving, so you're moving the E to a G. So there you go, the same notes and letters that are making up the Jeff name. So
Yeah. Yes, I never thought of that.
well, it seems like you have thought of various novel ways of looking into it, because I understand the secret cipher of the Euphonauts has played a bit into your investigations.
It has by accident. Well, I'm going to say by accident. So I was aware of the secret cipher of the Euphonauts long before kind of Hellier. I don't know how I'd come about it, but I've had a copy of the book for a long time, and I kind of used it now and again for various synchronicities. Just using it as a kind of a tool,
Yeah.
just to gauge whether I was on the right lines of something. And there's this really interesting story about Jeff going to this mansion on the Isle of Man, which is about 20 miles away from Dawlish Cashen. And it's called Ballamore House, or it was called Ballamore House. And Jeff decides one day that he's going to go to this mansion. Jim Irving says that he's never been there and Vorry's never been there. It's not somewhere that they've ever visited. But Jeff takes himself off and he comes home and tells Jim Irving all about this house. He tells him about the people that live there. He describes the dogs that they keep. He describes the fireplace, and just gives lots and lots of details. And Jim goes into loads of detail about this and tells Nandor Fodor about it and is very insistent that Nandor Fodor investigates and verifies the details. So they have a visit to Ballamore Mansion and they actually verify, I think, about 80% of the details that Jeff has said.
Huh.
Um, Much to the kind of astonishment of the lady that owned the house at the time. I don't think she was very happy about having an invisible talking mongoose kind of spying on her. And she's quite
Right.
cold when they visit, understandably, I guess. Unfortunately, not long after this visit, she passed away and the house was sold. And it was sold to a guy called Alexander Cannon, who in himself is a really strange individual.
Huh.
And he moved in there. So I was doing this research into Alexander Cannon and Ballamore Estate, and it was just one particular morning, and I just decided to run a couple of details through the cipher just to see if anything kind of popped up. And I got the same number coming up, 171. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. And I'd had this really weird thing that morning because I'd come downstairs into my kitchen, and on my kitchen floor there was a plastic blue spaceman. Oh, he's here actually. I've got him. So I have no small children. My children are
Huh.
grown up, left home, but there was this blue spaceman on the kitchen floor. And I was like, where's that come from? And I happened to put that through the cipher as well, and it came out to 171. So
Wow.
I thought, this is really weird. And I wrote it all down. I keep a diary. And I just decided to kind of like look into it a little bit more and just kept getting this hit time after time with various things. And I use it with a lot of the Jeff synchronicities. That's the only number that's kind of come up time and time again. Um, but yeah, it's a line of thought that I don't think anybody else has gone down with this case. And it might not lead me anywhere, but I think it's a useful tool to kind of keep you on the synchronistic track, really.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I'm just thinking. I think you said as much, but I kind of understand how this applies to Greenfield now, because you ended up in contact with Greenfield, and at the risk
Yes.
of exposing something about Greenfield that maybe he doesn't want people to know, I'm not going to mention why 171 is important with
Yeah. So
him.
I got in touch. Well, but what happened was another investigation that we go on every year is up to Chillingham Castle in Northumberland. I don't know if you've heard of Chillingham Castle. It's listed as one of the most haunted castles in
Yeah.
England, but there's
Yep.
lots of haunted castles in England. Um, but it's a really interesting place and you can stay there. So every year for the past quite a number of years, a group of friends have gone there. And last year when we came back, randomly, Alan Greenfield started putting posts on social media about Chillingham Castle and related to Chillingham Castle. And I was like, this is really strange. Why has he started doing this? Well, we've just got back from this place. And I just thought, I need to get in touch with him. It just popped into my head. I really need to speak to him about that and the Jeff case. Um, and I did find a 171 connection, as you say. So yeah, I wrote to Alan, and just thought, well, I didn't expect to get a response. And he got back to me and sent me an absolutely lovely email. So yeah, he's
Yeah, because
it
he
was
had been, I guess, looking into the Isle of Man. It had been
yeah,
on his radar for as a spot of
it
high
had been
strangeness. Yeah,
on his radar. He said, as a liminal place, high strangeness. There are a number of disused mines there, that I don't think anybody's investigated. And to be fair, I don't know whether it'd be safe to do so anyway. But he definitely mentions them as being an area of interest, and obviously because of the folklore connections as well, he's
yeah,
interested in it. So
yeah. And I mean, there are interesting personality types. You had mentioned Cannon, who I'm curious to know more about because I don't know that much about him. But also, Dorlish Cashen and a lot of other properties there were owned by this kind of eccentric. They called him the French miser Pierre Baum for a
yes,
long
Pierre
time.
Baum.
Yeah,
He's a really strange guy, and I need to do some more digging on him. Um, and he had a connection with Cannon as well. So Pierre Baum owned land at Colney Hatch before Cannon had or before Cannon had come to the Isle of Man. He was a doctor at Colney Hatch. So there's all this like really weird woven interconnections. There's some strange stuff that you can find about Pierre Baum. And about his beliefs and some information. And because I've not looked into him in any depth, which I need to do, it's on my list. But he's definitely kind of one to look into. So he seems like a very strange guy.
he
And the
seems like
island,
there's a lot of conflicting opinions about him. So it would be somebody you'd really have to kind of pull threads to try to get to the heart of. Yeah,
yeah, absolutely. Because when he passed, he did leave quite a lot of money to various charities on the island as well. So, like you said, there's a lot of conflicting opinions about him.
right.
Um, so yeah, he's one to still do some research on.
Yeah. Now, as far as canon goes, did he have the same kind of legacy of controversy with people not being
Yeah.
able to agree on? Yeah,
Yeah. So Cannon is really controversial, understandably. He wasn't a nice guy by all accounts. He he was a medical physician. He was from Leeds in England, and then he went to work in China. When he came back from China, his wife divorced him for abuse. Which should have finished his career, but unfortunately it didn't. He went on to become a very successful physician, he worked, as I said, he worked at Colney Hatch Hospital for a time. He set up a clinic on Harley Street, and had kind of access to, the upper class, who we would treat with some interesting kind of treatments. He used hypnosis, hypnotherapy in his treatments. He used electricity in his treatments. He wrote a book called The Invisible Influence, which was kind of one of the early self-help books before
huh.
self-help books were an actual thing. And when the managers at Colney Hatch found out about him releasing this book, he was sacked. They didn't think it was appropriate. He was treating royalty. So he was treating, or what was Prince Edward at the time, as one of his
Hmm.
clients. And he had some very dubious right-wing connections as well, and clientele, and ended up moving to the Isle of Man and opening this clinic, where he was possibly he was a German spy. We don't know for definite, but he had some very, as I say, right-wing connections going off. He was a person of interest. MI5 were watching him and have
Huh.
files on him. Um, yeah, the whole thing's just very strange.
Well, I mean, and it seemed like the Isle of Man for some people was a place to lay low because you weren't on the British mainland.
Yeah, and it seems like around that time in the 30s and 40s, there was quite a few of that sort of character. Um, that were either sent over there in exile by the government or just went over there and made it their home,
Yeah.
unfortunately. So it does seem to attract the those sort of people at that time period anyway.
So during the time where he was thought to be a spy, um, what time period are we talking about? Is this around
So
World War One?
just before the Second World War. He went over there, I
Oh,
think
okay.
1940. So yeah, it was just before. So it's just slightly after that. Jeff was sort of up until about 38, 39. Jeff had started to disappear for longer periods of time.
Huh.
But he was around that time he moved there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And Jim died in 1945. So there is a little bit of an overlap between them, between the
Right. Right.
cases.
Um, I was just curious if there was any Crowley connection there, since there's all this stuff about
There
Crowley
is,
having with MI5, and yeah, there is.
yes.
Okay.
So Alexander Cannon was Crowley's second wife's doctor at Colney Hatch. She was a patient at Colney Hatch. So Cannon and Crowley did know each other.
Oh wow.
There's a great newspaper article that I've got a copy of somewhere where Cannon is doing, I think it's in London, and Cannon's doing a stage show, and Crowley's in the audience. And the journalist comments that Crowley sort of heckles Cannon and says that, questions his practices and things. So I don't think they got on very well, to be fair.
Oh okay.
Crowley called him out on a number of occasions by the sounds of it.
Huh.
So yeah, they
Yeah.
definitely knew each other.
Right. Yeah. No, yeah. I'm just curious about that, just because there are the rumors, and sometimes people consider it fact that Crowley was working on behalf of the British government, in regards to espionage and sussing out spies and things like that. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I've found no Crowley Isle of Man connections at the minute. If there is any, I'd love to find them, but I haven't. But as I say, definitely knew Cannon.
Right. Right. Huh.
Mm,
Interesting. Yeah.
yeah.
Um. Well, sometimes I think there tends to be like ways for people to think of any particular case and phenomena and entity within the broad scope of Forteana, and want to apply a label to it, right? And with Jeff, I'm kind of like leaning towards maybe he was a conjured entity of some kind. Uh, do you think that's possible? I mean, really, it's just we don't know enough about Jim, which is unfortunate. But he could possibly have. When you talk about somebody that sells pianos for a living, he probably was dealing with a lot of wealthy people who may have had occult connections and may have been. I mean, the arts in London in the early part of the 20th century had a lot of people overlap with like the Golden Dawn and things like that. So,
Absolutely. And I really wish that we knew more about Jim's background. I wish something would turn up just to kind of get that before he went to the Isle of Man. Um, because I think Jim is the key to it. I really do, but I just
yeah,
can't find any evidence of it, unfortunately. And I've kind of like played around with lots of different thoughts about Jeff and Jim, even down to sort of some weird remote viewing experiment.
yeah,
But yeah, I really don't know. And I guess unless we find some sort of signed documentation from Jim, we're never going to know. But
yeah.
I don't know.
That's unfortunate.
It is. It's a mystery, but yeah, like I say, Jim's definitely yeah, some sort of key.
Yeah. Just because I don't know, I've heard Jeff described as possibly a poltergeist, like we were saying, some kind of like fairy type entity, or some kind of ghost or some kind of weird creature. And I'm like, at a certain point, it's just like, well, he's a talking mongoose. That's what he is. Isn't that enough?
Absolutely. And I think I've played with all of those ideas in the past. Originally it was always kind of the poltergeist thing, like you say, because that's the most kind of common
Yeah.
one, I guess. And then I went down the fairy route, and Jeff has got a lot of fairy kind of type behaviors. There's a lot of fairy connections there. Um, but I don't, like you said, I don't even know what those things are. So I don't know what a poltergeist is. I don't know what fairy is.
Right.
Talking mongoose, I don't know. So,
Yeah.
and Jeff himself didn't well, whether he knew what he was or he didn't want to say what he was a ghost and he wasn't a ghost. He was dead, he
Mhm.
was alive. Um, so yeah,
Well, the
it's
fact that he has a birthday too is
he
interesting to me.
does.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, he has it's the 7th of June, 1852. He says was his birthday.
Yeah,
So
near Delhi in India.
yeah.
Yeah. Which means he would have been in his 80s during the event.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he said that he'd been at Dawlish Cashen for at least 20 years before 1931. So he told Jim that he'd been around for at least 20 years prior to that. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah.
Yeah.
And there is tales when you look into the folklore, there is tales of you could call it like poltergeist activity at the house prior to the Irvings moving in. So they had some workmen staying there and they heard noises in the night and they refused to stay there. There's a couple of burials up around that area. There is another house nearby that had what was described as poltergeist activity. And I think there's at least two accounts where people have said, "Oh yeah, strange things happen in that house before the Irvings moved in," but
Hmm.
never. But they said, "Oh, it wasn't Jeff; it was something else." Um, so yeah, there was something around there for a long time prior
Yeah.
to the
Yeah.
Irvings discovering him.
Interesting. Well, I mean, I got a little sidetracked, and at the risk of mentioning something that I don't know what I'm talking about on the show. I didn't have time to dig into it too deeply, but I came across reference to somebody having discovered a human skeleton somewhere near or on Dalby Mountain that was like had Viking remains, I guess. So it was like a broadsword and an axe and other things, and they just kind of covered it back up. Um,
I
but
know there's a
yeah,
Viking burial, not too far, or allegedly a Viking burial not too far. And there was also an urn, with some ashes in it that was found that was put when they'd found the urn, or the guy that had found the urn allegedly, felt something push him, and so he buried it straight away. But I'm not sure about the axe and that, but I don't know what was found in the burial. But yeah,
huh, wow, okay.
I'll have to look into that one.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the cumulative history and the folklore and all the various kinds of people that have moved and lived on the Isle of Man over the years, and take into account the fact that eccentrics and rich people will sometimes go there to hide, or almost, uh, and then the variety of different kinds of phenomena. I wonder if I've been thinking lately that there are every case has its own individual cause that these broad categories only kind of help to sketch out but don't describe completely. Like I feel like especially with extraordinary ones like this, it may just be an amalgam of the different forces at play. Just all those variables came together in just such a way to create the eighth wonder of the world that is Jeff. you know?
Absolutely. And you wrote an article about Sam, the Sandown Clown, and
Yeah.
when you made reference to the Isle of Wight Festival, and I was reading that and I was like, oh, that's really interesting because I'd never thought about that before, about kind of that having an influence on the Sam case. So maybe you've got something there about the Isle of Man. Like you say, it's this liminal place with these strange people going backwards and forwards. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
It's
because I mean, with the Viking burial and like I said, with the Ratatoskr thing and having him look sort of squirrel-like, and the presence of mongooses, and then you do have Voiri as a pre-adolescent girl, but then you have this mysterious Jim with his piano salesman background. But other than that, we don't know much. It's like all of these things go together to just create an entity that and live a very short and colorful life in the public imagination, and then carry on in some way. But
absolutely. He's an absolute trickster character, no
yeah,
doubt about it. He is, absolutely the trickster archetype, um, whatever he is. So
Well, I mean, and then there's like eerie aspects to it too. Because like one of the things in the movie that happens is he recites a poem that's um, by Yeats, and then it's revealed that when he recited the poem, Yeats hadn't yet published it. So there's so he had predicted it, but that didn't happen in real life. Like that
No,
whole thing was invented. But it is interesting when you like consider things like the Jeff activity kind of tapered off right before World War II started, and one of the many quotes that people pull from him is "I'll split the atom."
that is one of the things that I've picked up on. It's a really interesting quote, and it just sort of came out of nowhere. Yeah, and then obviously we've got that happening. Um, there's definitely something to unpack with that. I don't know
Yeah,
what, but there is.
yeah. Well, it means something, I would think.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of that's a very random non sequitur. Like you don't just hang out with friends and talking about like the football game last night and then just throw in, oh, by the way, I'm going to split the atom. Anyway, who
Yeah.
do you like for Saturday?
Yeah, that one's always sat with me. I've always thought it needs unpicking.
Yeah. And I mean, especially the fact that, I mean, because I think sometimes people point it out and they're like, well, was that even in the public imagination back then? It's like, yeah, I mean, people since the Curies knew about like atoms and physics and the idea theoretically that you could split the atom. Like that's not just because it was before the atom bomb or nuclear power doesn't mean that people didn't know about it. But it is a strange thing for an
It
80 year
is.
old mongoose to bring up.
But then, Jim was very well read. So,
Mhm.
he could have been reading. Um, we just don't know. So he could have been having that conversation with Jim, or it could be something that Jim had been reading and Jeff's picked up on. But
Yeah. Yeah,
mm.
Jeff seemed to like to read over Jim's shoulder, which people can take any way they want. I think people tend to take that to mean that um, whatever voices were supplied by Jim's knowledge, like that Jeff didn't seem to know anything that Jim didn't already know.
Yeah.
um, so, but yeah, I mean, Jim was well read. He seemed to keep up with the news and science and all of that. So, um,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah. Um, well, let's see. Do you have any favorite stories of the Isle of Man from your travels there that we didn't cover already? Uh,
Um, just trying to think.
yeah,
Um, Not really. I think we've kind of pretty much covered all the stories and has kind of had a little bit of a dig into the
right.
folklore.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, as I say, it's just this really magical place for anybody that hasn't ever visited. And if you're interested in folklore, just go. It's like I can't, it's really difficult to describe. But it's so magical. And it's definitely got this otherworldly feel, quality about it. Um,
yeah. Well, and as I said before, I can tell from your photos, the photos you include in your articles about it, and especially the fog. Like the fog is crazy there.
Yeah, the mist just rolls in. You'll wake
Yeah.
up. Some mornings you'll wake up and you can see Ireland from your bedroom window, and then the next morning you'll wake up, and the whole place is just covered in mist. But that is one of the kind of the folkloric things about the Isle of Man is Manannan, who was king of the Fae, would
Mm.
shroud the island in the mist to hide it from invaders. So they call it Manannan's cloak.
Oh
And
wow.
it's I've never seen anything like it. It's
Huh.
absolutely like it's mind blowing when you see it. Just cover coming in over the mountains and covering the trees.
Huh. Well, maybe that's why Jeff was afraid of the land of the mists, because if he's part of this kingdom or subject to it in some way, maybe he's doing stuff he shouldn't be doing. And
Maybe he's gonna get called back to the land of the
right.
Fae.
Yeah. Well, wherever Jeff is now, I hope he's doing well. That's all I can say. He seems like a lovely sort.
He does. He does. And we're just so affectionate about him. Um, he's like a little extension of our team. And we do talk to him and kind of write him little notes and leave little offerings out for him.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Play some of the songs he liked,
yeah. Oh, yeah, we
Yeah,
did that actually once. We took a tape recorder up to Dawlish Cashen and played some music for him. And
yeah,
yeah, whether he was listening or not, I don't know. But
right. Um, shit, I was gonna say something, lost it. Oh no. I think it was something good too. Oh no. Oh yeah. One further synchronicity is that I guess there was some kind of zoo on the Isle of Man, and they had a mongoose that escaped in recent years too,
yeah,
and
that
they
was
named
this
it
year.
Jeff.
Last
Yeah,
year. It was not
right.
long after we'd got back, actually. And we'd been to see it. I've got photographs of that mongoose somewhere. But yeah, it escaped from the zoo and they named it Jeff. And I think they found it in a brewery, if I remember correctly, a few days later. And it had gone a long way. It had traveled this huge distance.
Right.
Um, so yeah, that was really funny. Bless him.
So Jeff went to get himself a pint.
Yeah, Jeff went for a beer.
Yeah, excellent. Well, Jeff lives.
He
As far
does.
as I'm concerned, he does. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
Uh, all right. Well, do you have future plans in the works, or you got anything that you're working on now that you're going to get into in the near future? Uh,
Just getting
and you're
back
going to
into
go
the
back there, right?
yeah, we're
Yeah.
we're going back at the end of April. And kind of we come back every year with all these plans that right, we're going to go away and investigate this and this and this, and then we just don't do as much as we should. So I'm
Hmm.
desperately kind of reading stuff and just pulling all the stuff about Alexander Cannon, because I feel like I'm missing something there together. Um, and then going back, as I say, in April, we've kind of stopped making plans for what we do when we get over there because we just find that it never works out how we intend it to anyway. And we just kind of go with it. And
Hmm.
whatever happens, happens. Whoever we meet, we meet. And we have some crazy adventures. And yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, we'll be back there in April. It's very exciting. They have a big fire festival for Beltane, that we went to last year, and they're very the Manx people are really, really friendly, and they encourage visitors to take part in the festival and carry fire. It's on the beach in Peel, and it's wonderful. So we'll be taking part in that again. It's a lot of fun.
Oh, it sounds great. Yeah.
It
Yeah.
is fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah. And do you have any non-Jeff related stuff coming up? Any fiction or writings for Spooky Isles or anything like that?
I'm a really lazy writer and I really
Yeah.
need to get back into it and do something. But I'm just like, yeah, there's probably loads of stuff that I should be writing and I'm not actually doing anything.
Well,
So I don't have any plans at the moment. I don't tend to plan things. Things will just pop into my head and I'll go, oh, that's really interesting. I should probably look into that and write about it and then, you know, do an article. So
yeah,
yeah.
I'm very similar, so I understand. Yeah.
So I think I have to. I I don't ever want to see writing as a chore. So it's got to be something that just kind of an idea just comes and then I have to go with it rather than if I sit down at the laptop and go, I'm going to write this today, I know that I won't do it. Or if I do it, I won't enjoy it. So there's no point,
Right.
is there?
Yeah. Yeah, you don't want it to be a slog. It's nice when it's
Absolutely.
just inspiration hits you and you can just off to the races.
Yeah, 100%. I keep saying,
Yeah.
oh, I'd love to just be a writer for the rest of my life and get paid to do it, but I probably wouldn't make any money at all because I wouldn't do anything. I'd just sit there and do nothing. So, yeah,
Right.
we shall see what
Yeah.
happens. Uh, we're going up to Chillingham Castle in a few weeks' time. Just have a few nights there to see what happens because that's one of our other favourite places. So something might, crop up on our investigations of Northumberland, which is another area that Alan Greenfield mentioned, actually, Northumberland for its strange liminal place. So we'll
Huh.
see what happens when we're up there.
Yeah, I'd like to check that out. I mean, I'd like to check out everywhere in England because every time I hear about stuff, I just want to I'll go see it.
Yeah, you need to come over. And yeah, I'm going to Boleskine House in April, for their gala opening. I've supported the foundation for years.
Hmm.
So we got tickets to go to that, which I'm very excited about. Um, it'll be a
Well,
lovely weekend.
you
So,
may see one of my former guests there. Uh,
oh,
uh, Caitlin Fitzgerald is an artist I had on a while ago. She designed a light fixture, kind of like a leaded glass kind of window for the restoration, and I think she's going to be there for the opening. She works for their like social media team too. So yeah,
oh wow. Oh, that's
yeah,
brilliant. I'm
yeah,
very excited about it.
yeah.
I've never been to the house and I've always just felt this kind of weird, I don't know, you say maybe attachment to it. And when it burnt down the first time, I was absolutely devastated. And then obviously the second time. So I was so glad when it was bought
Yeah.
and the foundation was set up.
Right.
So yeah, I'm really excited to go and see what they've done with it and just spend
Yeah.
time at Loch Ness because it's somewhere that I've never actually been to the
Huh.
loch. So I'm going to look for Nessie while I'm there. See if
Well,
that pops up.
maybe that's where Jeff went. You know, you may kill two
Maybe.
birds with one stone
Yeah.
going there.
They're
You'll see him swimming around in the loch.
together. Yeah. Can you imagine? Like Nessie and Jeff, and I'll see them, and then nobody would believe me, would they? It'd be like, yeah, whatever. Like,
Yeah.
what have you been drinking? Yeah.
I'll believe you. You can tell me.
I keep saying this, if we ever do actually see Jeff, nobody's going to believe us. So, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, wonderful. This has been an absolute blast. Thank you so much for coming on, Gail, and taking your time to sit down and talk with me about this stuff.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. We'll talk soon.
Cool. Yeah, thank you very much.